Hi, I'm Brian Smith. I'd like to welcome you to Film Fun. It's a new series, 5 shows during the course of the series, and we'll be telling you a lot about animation, and it's a lot of fun too. Now, animation means many different things to many different people. You'll meet some of them throughout the 5 shows that you'll be seeing, and you're going to meet 3 of them on this show. First of all is Nancy Stoller, weighing in at around 40 pounds or so. Nancy is living, breathing proof that making home movies can't hurt you a bit. Of course, she showed us that in the opening of the show. Now, we have BMS. He's the brains of the show here. Bryan Michael Stoller is the name, and Super 8 home movies are his game. He's just zonked out about animation in general. In fact, I understand that you're planning to animate your pen so that you get 100% in every test you take, eh? Bryan and Nancy will be here each week to kind of help us unlock some of the mystery behind animation. And of course, each week we'll also have an expert who'll be along just to kind of keep us on the right track. Now, on the subject of experts, here's one. Well, that's some entrance, Sebastian. We all know who you are and what you do. Would you let the kids at home find out something about you?
Well, I'm a cartoonist, and I'm here just to discuss different ways that people can animate. You can do pixelation, you can do cell animation, you can do cutout animation, model animation, you can paint right on film, and I think that's all.
Okay, well, you brought a lot of stuff along with you, I know, and we'll be finding out more about all those things that you've mentioned, but we'll let you get organized and be back with you in just a minute, okay?
Well, I guess we're going to go now, Brian.
Go now? You can't go now. We're right in the middle of a show. You know, all those people out there are watching. You can't...
Well, we're only going out for a little bit of fresh air, that's all.
Fresh air.
We'll be back. Don't worry. You know, I started working with films about a year ago, and I think that, you know, from my first film, I've improved, you know, every film I've done. For instance, the first film I worked with was called Destination Mars, and I started off using strings for the rocket ship blasting off and things like that. And now I found the technique of using glass instead and posting the objects to the glass and moving it bit by bit. And in most of my films, most of them I've worked alone, but I also have my sister helps me with some of my films, and you know, she's a great help when I need somebody else, as well as my friends too when they're not busy. There's 3 forms of animation. There's cartoons, which everybody sees, you know, cartoons during the day, you know, Saturday morning, whatever. And there's another form, tabletop animation, which it's not seen as much as cartoons, but it's a form of, for instance, example, plasticine character. it's moved bit by bit, almost like cartoons are drawn. They have to be moved several times. And you use this method, which is called tabletop animation, using plasticine characters and little objects that are 3D. And then the form that Nancy was talking about and I was talking about for peculiar people and the magical chair, this was called pixelation, which is a form of turning turning live things, for instance, a chair, still things, a chair, and live people, animating them by making them slide along the ground or having them fly around on their knees. I spend most of my time working on films. For instance, after school, as soon as I get out of school, I run right home if I'm working on a film, and I work fluently. Like, for instance, if I'm working on a film and I've got the idea, I go downstairs to my workshop, and I can work there 6-7 hours non-stop. And like, I don't participate in sports throughout the year except for sometimes at home. I play football or something with my friends, or baseball, but not too often. And I think the best time for my filming is during the winter, because I'm closed in the house all the time and it gives me more time. And my parents, they're a little worried about me working on my films too long because they think it's going to interfere with my schoolwork. But usually when I do my films during the week, I usually do them after school, after supper, or the best time is during the weekend. But I don't think it will interfere too much with my schoolwork because, for instance, I did one film for school called Confederation Canada, and it helped me quite a bit with my subject, and I got a good mark on it as well. So I don't really think that it'll interfere too much. But as I was saying, I do spend quite a few hours on my films at one time. Most of the films I've worked on are original, but some films I've gotten ideas. Like, for instance, Norm McLaren did a film with a chair. But I got an idea of using a chair called the magical chair. But the idea with the chair moving was his idea. I make up my own stories. All my stories that I've done are pretty well original.
Could you tell us a little bit about this now, Bryan?
Yeah, this film I didn't do too long ago, and as you can see, the idea of the film is Nancy, she wants to get a rest, and so she's trying to get the chair to stay still so she can sit down. And as you can see, she's chasing the chair.
Did this idea occur to you first, or to Nancy, or how did it come about? What made you think of using this kind of an episode?
Well, first I started with the idea, and then Nancy sort of helped me working with things that could happen in the story. And this is how we went about it. We both thought of ideas for the story.
You got O-hip coverage, Nancy?
Pardon?
You got O-hip coverage?
No.
You sure seem to take an awful lot of pratfalls. That poor old chair is, there he is again.
Finally she sits down.
Finally I
and
get
the chair takes off with her.
chair takes off.
And then after this I've got the credits, which were done on a typewriter.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Chair
right.
by chair.
Little Girl by Nancy, Chair by Chair. Story written by Bryan Stoller. Spelt pixelation wrong.
Well, when you're working on something like that, do you kind of map out what you're going to do first of all, or do things occur to you as you're doing the film?
Well,
Yeah, in other words, I guess, do you make out a storyline?
Well, first of all, like for this film that I did, I made up the main idea of her chasing the chair. Then when we got downstairs, I set up equipment, and then we sort of worked our ideas together. We had the main idea, but we were working together our ideas, of what the film was going to work out to.
So like every other film director then, you have to have rehearsals.
Yeah, right. in this film, it's about a magical chair, okay?
Yeah.
I'll explain to you what's going to happen, okay? Now stand by the chair here. Okay, now to start off, I want you to come in, and you'll enter in that way, okay? So now, do you want to act that out now?
Yeah,
So you know what's going on?
Yeah,
Okay, now walk over this corner here. Okay, now I want you to turn around like that. I want you to move your feet like that. Yeah, and then I'll click single frame, and then you'll do it again. Okay. And then, yeah, now you'll be surprised. Look surprised when you see the chair. Right. Can you walk over to sit down in the chair? Okay, and then you'll freeze. Don't move at all, okay? And I'll single frame, I'll move the chair, and I'll do single frame. I'll move it again, single frame, and again single frame, and once more. And then you'll fall. Okay, fall. Right. Okay, then you'll be really tired, and then you'll just flop down on the chair, fast asleep. Okay, let's see you do that. Okay? And then in single frame, I'll move the chair forward with you on it. So it'll give the effect that you're leaving the room. You see, single frame all the way out, okay?
Well, that gives us a pretty good idea of how you go about that, now that we've seen the finished product as well. Next week, we'll have to get you behind the camera instead of in front of it like that to explain more fully what you do. All right, we'll be back to talk to Sebastian right after this. I've been watching you out of the corner of my eye as we were doing stuff over there, Sebastian, realizing that you were getting your stuff ready here. So you are all set. Could you show us some of the stuff that you've done and talk about it?
Yeah. I did this little hockey player, which took me about a week to do, and it's only 10 seconds long. First, I drew all the key positions first, which would be the little hockey player is skating. What you do is, the first drawing you do is where the foot lands.
Yeah.
And the next drawing you do is where the other foot lands. And after that, you can figure out how many drawings you want to do in between.
Oh, I see.
From one step to the next.
That's
If you want them to go slow, you could do 10, 20 drawings.
Oh, that's really
I see. So what you mean is the more drawings you do, the slower the action, and the faster the action?
The more drawings you do, the slower the action.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Because you see, when Bryan does his animation films, he doesn't really use that kind of a step. Like, he'll start with like a certain movement or something that he wants to do, and he'll start with one. Like, he'll go through the series, and then he'll sometimes repeat it, and so he's like an ordinary walk.
Yeah.
Or something,
Right.
He doesn't do it like the way you do. He does it in between as he goes.
Well, this is a startling film, Sebastian. I've seen it on television. Let's take a look at it now, and then perhaps you could explain why it would have taken you a week to do this 10-second film.
Well, we could look at it on regular speed first, and then later we could look at it frame by frame.
Okay. Sure.
Okay? Well,
Pardon?
Yeah, the good old Ottawa Nationals. They're no longer here in Ottawa.
That's really
now we have to roll back the film, if I knew how to do it.
Is there a reverse button on that?
Reverse, yep.
Okay. Should get us back. Okay, there we go.
Have a look at it backwards.
Yeah. That was an inspiration to have that stick repeated that way.
Yeah.
That was a very good effect, too, I thought. You going to show it to us slower now than
Stop. Yeah, slower. Right. Let's do it on 4 frames
Okay.
per second.
Now, what was there about this particular film, or is this typical of all animation, that it takes so long?
Yeah, because there's a lot of drawings involved.
Well, how many drawings were involved in this?
Well, we could count
We're
them.
seeing them now, eh?
Yeah, right. Well, there's a key drawing. There's another key drawing.
I see.
Goes up into the air. When he lands, that's a key drawing. There.
I see. So then you can make the rest of the drawings
Figure out
from that key drawing.
the drawings in between, right. When he hits the puck, that'll be a key drawing. because then the puck starts going the other way. There.
I like your effect of the
Yeah.
stick being multiplied.
See, this was done slower,
Yeah.
so that the audience could see it.
And also gave the effect because the puck always travels at a
Right.
quick speed.
So there were what, maybe 100 frames there, or that many?
Well, 10 seconds, there's 240 frames.
240?
Yeah.
It didn't seem to be that many. Why the different colors? Like you've alternated between red and blue.
Yeah.
I just want to try something different.
As an effect, I guess
Yeah.
you'd say. Sure.
Red and blue, when you see it quick, if you know it's red and blue, then you'll see it, but if you don't, it'll just turn into a purple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It gave me the impression of speed and movement.
Oh,
And
yeah.
of shadowing too,
Yeah.
maybe in some ways.
Yeah, or you could get a feeling of a person is alive just by it. That's what it
Yeah.
means to me. All animation, requires, as you know, lots of little work.
Yeah.
I think Norman McLaren once said it's not the drawing that counts, it's what's in between the drawings. It's not what you see on the frame,
Yeah.
it's what happens in between. It's how each drawing changes. You're not drawing a drawing, but you're drawing movements. Like this is sort of a sophisticated style of animation, like using cells. You can make very simple little animations.
When you say cells, you mean
Clear vinyl. On this one there's no background, but if you watch cartoons on television, there's a background.
Yeah.
And those characters are moving. If you paint them on cell, you can see the background behind it.
Through it. That's one of the reasons that
Yeah.
that it's used, right?
so in that one you just laid a piece of celluloid on a clear background, on a white background,
Yes.
and drew right on it, and then took the picture of it.
Right.
And that's all there was to it.
Yep.
Well,
So
that's all there was to it. I don't mean it that way.
yeah. So how many drawings did you do through it that whole film about?
The little 10 seconds,
Yeah.
60.
60 drawings for 10 seconds.
Yeah. I could have done 240.
Yeah. How long did it take you?
Refused.
Yeah. How long did it take you to do that film?
A week.
Took you a whole week for 10 seconds.
Yeah. There was drawings coming out of my ears.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Can we move on to another example then?
Yeah. I don't know what's on the reel next. We'll have a look. That's all.
Just before we continue on, but I wanted to say about that animation. It gave strength and power to me. The separation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now this.
This one is very interesting.
This is just a study.
This isn't a cycle, is it?
Yeah,
Repeating of
Yeah,
drawings.
this is a cycle, which means that
You use the
you
same
use the drawings over and over again.
Right.
I just wanted to try and make a head turn. Here's another little one. The girl walking.
That is very well done.
And that was a commercial film.
That's the commercial.
Well, what were the techniques that you used in that
That
were
one I
different
just-
from the other one?
Instead of, I didn't use paint, I used crayon.
You used crayon for that
Yeah.
one, did you?
And so you get sort of a boiling effect.
Oh, I see. So there's different ways of doing it then for using.
Whatever you can think of.
So you can use paint and crayon and
Yeah, you can
And
work on cell.
markers.
You could also work on paper.
on paper. Oh,
See,
But if you work on paper, you can't have a background.
right.
'Cause
It's
you
got to
can't
be.
see through it.
Otherwise, you'd have to keep drawing the background
Right.
over and over
yeah,
again,
so
right?
you can use things like you can use like the paint or the marker,
Yeah.
like
Crayons,
the crayons. Yeah,
whatever will stick to your
Yeah.
paper or your cell.
yeah.
Uh,
My brother did one before, like on a paper, like just on ordinary sheets of paper.
Right. You can do them on cardboard. You can make
Yeah.
little. This is a very simple form of animation. I
Yeah,
did it
just-
last night. It took me an hour. And I just do a little guy who walks across and jumps.
Yeah.
I could just flip it for you. That would
Perhaps you
be-
could flip it over in that direction as well, so the
okey-dokey.
kids at home can see how it's done, and we can take a look at it
Yeah,
afterwards.
it's a very loose little character.
Oh yeah, is that over there?
Yeah.
That
These kids are too little to remember, but perhaps they weren't even around or haven't been around for a long time. I can remember the big little books, the little thick
books.
things
Oh, yeah.
like this, and you used to be able to flip through, and they have a picture in the top right
Right?
corner of every page.
Yeah, I often go into the store just for that sake, and I take out
They still
the
have
little
them, eh?
books and I flip them
Isn't that
through
nice?
just for the enjoyment of watching the little animated things go by.
I mean, that's interesting, like, you know, the way you do it. It's neat.
Right.
Like, yeah, you can do even cardboard characters, like, you know, the background.
Yeah. Well, do you know what that's called when you use cardboard characters?
Oh, I've forgotten now.
Cutout. It's
Cutout.
Yeah.
Cutout
Right.
animation, yes.
Right.
I'm just doing a film now with cutouts. It's just as long a process as the others. Well, I mean, it's fairly long, not as long as doing animation because the drawing is there for you. But
Yeah.
you've got to move the drawing. You've got to cut out its arms and legs, and you've got to attach twisters or something to make them movable. You know.
Right.
Yeah, like my brother did a film before. He called it the Blue Blob. You know, he's got this big blue character, like on a cardboard. And it's like sort of like a little series. Like, you know, I forget how long it is. Not very long though. He used cardboard characters in it, and used, you know, some backdrops in it, and it looks really neat.
Yeah.
Well, you and your brother have been working in film animation for what, about a year and a half now?
Yeah,
And
around
Sebastian,
it.
you've been in the business for a bit longer than that. But we're going to find out in just a minute or so just how long film animation has been going on, because we're going to break for another commercial now, and then we'll be back.
Okay. You know, film animation is really quite old.
Yeah, really old.
Yes, the boy's quite right. So is Nancy. Film animation in North America is quite old. My name is John Smith. It's my grandson, Brian, that you've been seeing a bit earlier. And I've come up from the early part of the century to tell you a little bit about a man who made some animated films in 1915. His name was Sid Marcus, and he was really quite good. You take a look at his stuff today, and you'll still enjoy it. We have more coming right along, too. Well, that's not bad stuff there by Sid Marcus, back around 1915, Brian.
Well, we'll be glad to have Bryan Smith back now.
A fine thing to say. Huh. Well, we've animated ourselves right out of time. I want to thank our guest, Sebastian, for coming along and sharing his enthusiasm and knowledge about animation with us. I know that you and your sister Nancy, Bryan, will be along next week. And I hope, too, that you'll also be along next week to join us. Find out more about the fun of animation on Film Fun.
Some of the films I've done for causes. For instance, one film I did for a carnival against muscular dystrophy. And I've also done a number of pollution probe films too. And I've thought about it, and I've been thinking that I shouldn't just sit down and work on a film that has no cause. Like, for instance, I've done a number of films before I got my new camera. I just sat down and did a film for the sake of doing it. But now I've thought that if I have a cause for it, I'll put more work into it, and it'll be more worth the time.
Hello, I'm Bryan Smith, and this is another Film Fun show. And Bryan Stoller and his sister Nancy and I were just talking about, it really looks like they're having fun when they're doing that film animation, that fast stuff at the top of the show. But that's not the way you really do it, eh? It's all part of the secret of shooting some frames at a time. Anyway, people, every week on Film Fun we have a chance to take a look at some of the films that you're into and that you have done or are thinking about doing. We're going to take a look at one that you've done.
Right, and that film is called Let a Tree Be Free.
And this film I did for pollution probe. If you watch closely, you'll be able to see what kind of pollution it's pointing out. So let's have a look at the film now then, eh?
Right.
Okay.
Now, this is one of your earlier efforts, is it, Bryan?
Yeah, I did this film during the summer. And
What are you pouring down there to create
yeah,
the
that didn't
fog?
come out too well. That was one of the problems. It was supposed to be snow, but it's really a baby powder, and it didn't come down too even.
Yeah, you're getting your pen into the shot there, Nancy.
And then this part here is it's blooming.
Did you have a little problem with focus sometimes?
Yeah, this camera, this is the new camera I got. It was the second film I did, and it had you had to adjust to the focus, and I had 5 feet put down, but I was 4 feet, you see. So that's why it was a little bit out of focus.
Where did you get the idea?
Well, first of all, like I've done a number of other pollution probe films, but one of them was with land pollution, and I wanted one for air pollution, and I just got the idea of the living trees, you know, and it's really free, which has to do with pollution, and I did this one for pollution probe, and I did this film not too long ago during the summer, and I've got some of the characters from it as well. Nancy, you want to get the rest of the trees, please? Now this is the main tree of the whole film, and well, the film is centered around a tree and its growth, and it's showing how it's affected by pollution. And in the film, you see it growing, and a number of people have asked me how I've done that. I made 4 trees, and to start off, I put this one tree here, and I filmed it for about 2 frames. Then I removed it, and I put the second one on, which was quite a bit bigger, and I framed that for 2 frames. And I removed that one again, and I took this one and put it on. At the time, the trees weren't blooming, but I'm using these from the film. And then this one was put in place, and then I took it away and placed the biggest tree. And this gave the effect that the tree was growing. And then you saw it going through different climates of weather. You saw it snowing and raining and all that. And then you saw the tree blooming, which you can see. The leaves here are just bits of plasticine, which Nancy is making some for one of the trees. You see, the leaves are just pieces of plasticine, which I put on the tree one by one to give the effect of blooming. And in the story, I have my little character up here. This is, he again is the main character of this story, where he's riding in a car, which is just a cardboard drawn up as a car with a little cardboard stick on the back to prop it up, to give the effect of cartoon among 3D figures. And at the time, I had this covered out here so you couldn't see the little man. And the tree comes up, or the car comes up to the tree. Nancy, do you want to hold that like that? Sure. The car comes up to the tree, and the little man comes out and he looks at his exhaust, and then the tree calls him over, and the little man goes over to the tree.
And there's a stone that he sat on.
And he sat down on a stone, and the tree was telling him that there's too much pollution. So the little man got an idea, and he walked back to his car and he pushed it off. And then they started using buses, and the bus came through. You saw the bus going through, because the point I was trying to prove was a bus replaced 60 people. It could replace 60 people, which replaces 60 cars, and that's less pollution. And the tree is telling all about it with the captions, which are just drawn up bubbles, and they were pasted on the backdrop saying that less pollution so he can live. And another part in the film was a bus stop, where you saw the people coming to the bus stop.
Brian, here, I'm just going to take the little tree here and finish the leaves, okay?
Okay. Here are some of the people which I made. These are just a shaker maker kit, which I painted, which anybody could do this if they had a kit. And I painted them up to make them for the people at the bus stop. And this gave a good effect because you saw them going there, and then the bus came in front of them, and then you saw a puff of smoke, and then the people were gone, which gave the idea that they were inside the bus. And working to the end of the film, it shows that the less pollution so the trees can live, and it shows that 2 or 3 more trees were able to grow and bloom. And that's really the whole point of the film.
Brian, I'll just finish these leaves here now.
There you go again, exploding all the mystery about animation. That was very interesting, the way you described the way you did things in that. That's it's good to know that there is some kind of sense and system to the whole process. Well, that's the film from the Stollers, and we're going to have a film that was made back in 1909, a bit later on the show. We'll also be talking to our guest on this week's show, who'll be telling us something about Sesame Street animation. That all happens a bit later on. Right now, we're going to take a break for a minute.
Now it's time to meet our guest, Ken Perkins, all the way from Winnipeg.
That sure was a tough entrance.
That's shoe business.
That sure is a bad joke.
Oh, it surely is. I hope you didn't come all the way from Winnipeg just to tell us that one.
No,
Ken.
no, not at all.
Anyway, welcome to the show, Ken Perkins.
Thank you.
I guess before we go any farther, since we haven't found out much about you so far, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I sure can. It was kind of interesting. I was talking to Bryan before the show, and he was telling me about how he started out in film. And much to my surprise, it's almost identical to the way I started. I think I was about 15 years old. I had a keen interest in film, and I went and sold my bicycle and bought my first 8mm camera and started experimenting and just having fun with it.
I don't think maybe you were really as bad off as I was, because first of all, I didn't have a tripod, so I had to tape my camera to a bunch of books on a table, and I had to use 60-watt light bulbs until I finally bought 150-watt light bulbs. And you know, I didn't have the professional, really the professional equipment that was needed.
That's probably going to be to your advantage, though, because I have found that a lot of the nicest little films I've seen have been films that were made with a minimum of equipment and materials.
Is that right?
And the reason is that I think that with the limited equipment and facilities, you have to innovate. You have to be inventive. You have to come up with different ways of doing things. And sometimes the results can be pretty astounding.
Right, so really it depends mostly on the story and how you arrange it. So if anybody wanted to try it and they didn't have, like, I mean, if they didn't have $5,000 worth of equipment, it doesn't really matter. Just, it really depends on their knowledge and really their skill of what they're doing, I guess.
I wouldn't let the lack of fun stop me. I think the main thing is just to go out and have fun and enjoy it.
That's right.
And experiment.
Well, the lack of fun certainly didn't stop you. Here you are with your own company.
That's right.
And you're producing animated cartoons for Sesame Street, among a lot of other things, but that's what we thought we could talk about as a result of your visit here today.
Right, great, sure.
What
I
we
brought
got
along
on?
some film, and perhaps we can take a look at some of the items.
Okay.
Sure.
And if you want to ask me any questions about them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get used to the projector here. There we go.
I think you've done it.
Now, has this already been shown on Sesame Street?
It has. It's running right now, as a matter of fact.
Oh, yeah, I think I've seen that one, right.
When did you make this cartoon?
We made this one last year.
What was the purpose of it?
Was it on last year or what?
It's been on, no, it wasn't on last year. It just started running
Just
in
this year?
1974.
Yeah, I've seen this once. Is this that part like where they talk about the different parts of the country, eh?
That's right. And this item was used just to introduce us to different parts of the country.
Huh. Yeah. When
Next-
did you?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. When did you start making the films with Sesame Street?
About 3 years ago.
How many did you make so far?
Oh, I think altogether we've probably done about 40 of them by now.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah, this one we're looking at now, about how many cells would you say that it took for this entire one, this rooster?
Well, roughly speaking, Brian, I'd say probably about 60 to 70 cells.
Are there a number of cycles in there? Because it seems like
There are some cycles in there, yes. We've got some.
And you want to slow this down a little bit, single frame, and give an idea of the movement, maybe, of the speed?
Sure can.
What were these films follow the same purpose of all the Sesame Street things? They're instructional films. They lead into subject matter, do they?
Generally, they do. They're either designed to help to teach children French, or in some cases, they are really just fun items. Or they may be items that are designed to teach children how to count.
Do you come up with the ideas and sell them to the producers?
Very often we do. In this case, all of these items we did do the concept work on. We then submitted them to the Sesame Street producer and got them approved and then produced them. But there is an awful lot of concept work being done by filmmakers, animators all across Canada. More so than ever before are a lot of Canadians producing film for Sesame Street.
Do you do all this yourself, or do you have other workers with you that help you? Like, for instance, this one here with the grate.
I didn't do this one myself, no. This was done by one of the people I had working for me at the time.
Oh, I see. Now, like, I mean, have you done any cartoons yourself where you've done the entire work of the film?
I have done several, but I don't think I've got any on this reel.
No?
I think everything that's on this reel was produced in the studio, but I've been more involved in the administration of the company rather than actually being on the drawing board.
Yeah.
And I must admit, sometimes I miss it.
Yeah, do you want to show us now
Yeah.
how the single frame is for each...
Now what's
Maybe put that
this
in
film
reverse.
part showing us? Like, what's it supposed to be showing?
This
Alright,
particular
this is-
item is not running.
No.
Is it jammed or is it
No,
functioning?
that's
Is
what
it, there,
Here we
you're-
go.
You're jiggling it, all
Yeah,
right.
there we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
Now,
This
like,
particular item was used in order to give children the English and French words for the raisin, first of all, which we see here. And in just a moment, you're going to see him get squashed right down into a grape. And there he goes, right?
Or a grape to a raisin.
I mean a grape to a
Yeah.
raisin.
That's right. You get
Yeah.
confused with the French and
Yeah.
the English.
That's
again,
right.
but
Well,
that's what I was saying.
if you keep watching, you'll see that even he gets confused because he doesn't know by the time he reaches the end whether he's a grape or a raisin.
I see when you speed that up, the speed is completely different than just showing the single frame to the fast motion.
That's right.
And, now, if that's a cycle you're using now, is it changing?
That's a cycle of drawings of him going up and
Is that-
down.
yeah, that's a different cycle. They're like when the mouse changes, eh? When he
That's-
gets all pooped out there from.
The drawings
Turning
change
the-
at that point, yes.
Yeah, because he changed. So he's getting so tired from changing back and forth from a grape to a raisin.
That's
So he
right.
just, kind of.
Yeah, how many drawings did you use for that one cartoon with the grape turning into a raisin?
Into a raisin, I believe that was either 6 or 7 drawings.
About that, eh? And it lasts so long because you can use the same drawings over again, and it's not really suspected by people that way then, eh?
That's right.
And so for a cycle, like you can do at least, you can do, let's say, 3-4 drawings, and you can do it over something like 5 times, which would be saving you, let's say, 20 cells.
That's exactly
Yeah,
correct.
but the thing is, you can't always just do a cycle because all it's sitting here, let's say it's getting from a grape to a raisin, a grape to a raisin, and all this stuff. Just going back and forth, same thing.
That's right.
Yeah, but
Perhaps you
otherwise,
could turn this off for a second so we can all hear. I can't even hear Nancy talking away
Yeah.
here, and you're such a good talker. I'd hate to miss anything that you're saying there, Nancy.
You can come
yeah.
back to it.
So like when you do that, you can easily have a cycle, let's say, of a boy running even, and you can do that over as many times as you want to, right?
That's right. He can
Yeah.
run forever.
Yeah, so that you can have but you just have the background moving, eh?
That's right.
Right.
Is Sesame Street the only big impetus that has been given to animation in Canada? There seems to be more and more of it being done. Is it just through Sesame Street, or is there a kind of a renaissance of interest in film animation?
I think there's a gradual increasing interest in animation. We've certainly experienced it, and I think with young people having a little more time on their hands now, they're turning their interests towards creative areas like animation. And I think you'll find that it can be a very, very rewarding hobby, interest, experience, even a profession.
It's very enjoyable too, I'd have to say, because I've had so much enjoyment just doing it, just for the fun of it even,
That's right.
as well. I'm sure you've had as much fun probably too. Huh?
I still do. I still do.
Yeah.
For those, well, like Brian draws,
Mhm.
you draw. You're the only two animators I know, and you both draw. So do you have to be able to draw to be an animator?
It would help, but it's not absolutely necessary. I think probably two of the biggest prerequisites for being an animator would be to have a good sense of timing. And by that I mean you have to have an idea of how things move and how quickly they move. For example, if I took my hand and moved it from the edge of my chair up into the air, you would have to be able to figure out approximately how much time that took.
And which movement would be faster? For instance, if a man is, let's say, punching another man, you don't want it to be the same pace just like that, but you want it maybe to be a little slow at the beginning, then you want the last movement to be a hard punch. So you have to draw less drawing so it speeds it up.
That's right.
Like, so he'd
So
go
it
like this and it would
accelerates.
go like as a punching out
Right. The
towards.
same thing would apply on something slowing down as well.
And
When
it's all-
something's coming to a stop, you would have your drawings get closer and closer together. The
Yes.
movement between drawings would be less and less until it came to a stop.
So you would, like, let's say if you wanted, like, for instance, like Brian said, if you want to punch someone, you can start them off really, really slow down here, eh? And then you just, like, in a number of drawings, and then when you, let's say, are so far away from them, you want to have a fast punch or something, you know, to go really fast.
Well,
You
that's almost right. What you would probably do is
less
you'd
drawings.
have the drawings get
Be
faster and faster
yeah.
all the time. The action would get faster and faster.
Like,
So you think there's a pretty good future for animators and animation in Canada, eh?
I think there is.
I think Bryan Stoller's coming along at the right time, eh?
Right. Well, I've already given Brian my card, and I'm sure I'm going to be hearing from him.
Yeah, well, if I know anything about Bryan Stoller, you sure will be hearing from him, and from Nancy, too.
right.
Great.
Ken Perkins, we'd like to thank you very much for coming and joining us in Film Fun, for sharing your enthusiasm and your knowledge about animation with us. We invite you to drop back when you can sometime and talk to others and encourage animation in Canada. We're going to take a bit of a break now. We'll see you at the end of the show. You're going to stick around for the rest
Sure
of the
will.
show, but we'll be back
Right.
in just about a minute.
And now we will see an old animated film called Little Nemo by Winsor McCabe. This film was made around 1909, and that's about the time that this old guy started hanging around.
Well, ignore that, Mark, young lady. That's a terrible thing to say. For this film, and for one other, my old friend and colleague, Winsor McCay, had to make 4,000 separate drawings on rice paper, transparent rice paper, and then back up each one with a low-grade cardboard and... Oh, well, it was all just too much trouble, especially when it wasn't very much longer when somebody discovered that using celluloid made much faster and much better film animation. Some fascinating film fun from Winsor McCay way back in 1909. What do you think of that stuff there, Nancy?
Well, it was really, really well done, the way the animation was done and the way that he drew the character in such speed, and it was really well done, like at the end part where it's like the two end characters were in like a mirror. It's really well done. It was really good.
And especially when you consider that that film was made way back in 1909.
Mr. Perkins, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show this week, and I'll also remember that point you told me about you don't need the most expensive equipment to do a film.
That's right, and I enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ken. On our next Film Fun, our guest is going to be a Toronto musician, composer, arranger named Ben McPeak. And he's going to tell us a little bit about how you arrange and compose music for films. It's quite an art, believe me. We're going to have a piano right in the studio to help him along with it, and perhaps if we're lucky, he'll compose some original music right there for us on Film Fun. So that's something to look forward to in our next show. In the meantime, this chap over here on my left is Bryan Stoller. This woman here on my right, is Nancy Stoller. My name is Bryan Smith, and we'll see you again.